Hi, it's that fantasy chick back again with another stream. It's another week, it's another stream. Um, so we got some things to talk about, some DC things to talk about this week. But if you saw my community post this weekend, you saw that I went to the Malibu Barbie Cafe. It's this pop-up cafe that they have. It was this really cute thing. You go in, of course, they have a little gift shop area where you can buy Barbies and T-shirts and cool glasses and little bags. And there's plenty of places all around where you could, like photo opportunities, like Barbie boxes and all sorts of Barbie decorations, and then there was the inside and the outside, and the outside has a skating rink, which I did not do. I did not skate because I did not feel like. Well, first of all, I didn't have socks. Second of all, I did not feel like falling on my behind in front of all those children, so I did not skate at the Barbie Malibu Cafe. But I did have a drink. They had they had so like even though this cafe is, most likely for kids, they had plenty of drinks for the adults. I had a Think Pink margarita, which was cute. And go along with this enormous burger I had. I couldn't even finish it, which is unusual. I love burgers, and there's never been a burger I couldn't finish. I could not finish this burger. Um, it was huge, but it was a fun little afternoon. You have to reserve your spot and pick out your. You have to reserve your spot and pick out what you're going to eat when you make your reservation, and then order any extras when you get there. So I ordered the drink. I thought I was going to get a dessert, but after eating that humongous burger, I was too full to get a dessert. So it was just the burger and the drink. But yeah, there was plenty of parents and children all over the place. But there were a few adults like myself who were there, sans children, and we had fun too. And they also had pink margaritas. So we all had drinks. Um, it was a fun experience. I enjoyed it. Since it's a pop-up cafe, it's only here for a little while longer, and then it's going away. But you know how Facebook works. The moment I said, made a reservation for that pop-up cafe, they started sending me all these other pop-up cafes. Like there's one for Golden Girls, there's one for this 90s video store, and I'm like, I'm good. I just wanted to go to the Barbie Malibu Cafe. So I'm good. But yeah, so that's how I spent my weekend with the Barbies. And of course I had to go in a pink dress because of course it was a cute little afternoon. I enjoyed myself. But okay. So now I have this article on, what is it? The 15 DC characters that the movies wasted. And so we're going to talk about that. Excuse me, I'm getting over a little head cold. It's my headache had went away and I did a little bit too much bending over today trying to put together all this stuff and the headache came back. It's like bending over brought the headaches back. And so now, ugh. So excuse me. Okay. So 15 DC characters that the movies completely wasted. With the DC extended universe seemingly in its last days, we look back at what might have been. Uh-oh, here we go. Quoting Marlon Brando. I could have been a contender. I could have had class. I could have been somebody. So lamented Marlon Brando in On the Waterfront, a movie about a dock worker who once aspired to be a prize fighter before taking a one-way ticket to Palookaville. Oh, shoot. I was afraid this was going to happen. Excuse me. Uh, okay. Sorry. My head is another thing. My head cold. I meant to turn that timer off, but of course, completely forgot about it. Okay, where was I? It's a distinct tragedy, yet it has a certain universality. It speaks for anyone who had the greatness within reach, who had greatness within reach, and then saw it slip away like so many mother boxes. The last reference concerns a separate cinematic universe entirely, the DCEU, DC Extended Universe, which only a decade ago began with the highest ambitions and best of intentions. Will provide a grizzled and serious exploration of the DC Comics pantheon as if they were modern mythology. It would tell an interlocking story that spanned the cosmos and millennia of history. And most importantly, for Warner Brothers Pictures, it would contend with Marvel Studios and all that money being made over at the Mouse House. It was supposed to be somebody. A decade later, the best laid plans have turned to ash. While some remnants of the so-called DCEU are being carried into the future under the rechristened DC Universe, which will be overseen by producers and DC studio heads, co-heads, James Gunn and Peter Safran. The vibe accompanying the reception and box office of this year's Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Flash, and Blue Beetle is that of a fire sale. Everything must go. Sad, because Blue Beetle really should be kept. Blue Beetle was good and really should be kept. It's so sad. And it's not Blue Beetle's fault. They did not promote the Blue Beetle. They did nothing to promote the Blue Beetle. That's not the Blue Beetle's fault. So as the curtain hastily comes down, we're left to wonder about the roads not taken and the wasted potential. And 15 films released across 10 years, plus a few others still in post-production in the vault, we've been introduced to upwards of 100 major characters from DC mythos, with their various fates and backstories left in various stages of development. Some proved to be big players in a shared cinematic universe that never could make up its mind on what it was about, and others amounted to glorified cameos teasing roads that led to nowhere. Many left something to be desired, so without further ado, here are 15 of them who feel fairly wasted. Jimmy Olsen. 15, Jimmy Olsen. Yes, Jimmy Olsen was in the DCEU, but since knowing this is dependent on whether you've seen the extended director's cut of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, or just the theatrical one, belies what a bizarrely random choice it was to make Jimmy, Superman's pal, be the guy who took a bullet to the face in the movie's first 10 minutes. He's the cameraman who turns out to be a CIA agent tagging along with Lois Lane in a fictional African nation, which means screenwriters Chris Terrio and Zack Snyder went out of their way to include the Olsen kid, also they could blow his brains out inside of a Metropolis minute. It's so fascinatingly pointless, a creative endeavor that it almost seems clever, almost. Yeah, that was something. When I first found out that dude was Jimmy Olsen, I was like, that was kind of pointless. That was totally pointless. Oh, 14, Lex Luthor. Unlike Superman's best friend, we got to spend plenty of time with his greatest nemesis in Batman versus Superman. And at least on paper, it seemed like a welcome reimagining of a character. To whom? At last, Lex would be the brilliant and evil CEO, making the world a worse place instead of just a buffoon. Well, Jesse Eisenberg's Luthor is an evil CEO and allegedly brilliant, but he's still a buffoon. He was obviously cast because Eisenberg was so disturbing in The Social Network, but Snyder and Terrio nonetheless guided the performance closer toward the realm of camp than anything Gene Hackman ever did. Frankly, Eisenberg's Lex would be as much at home in Joel Schumacher's Gotham City as he is Snyder's. Yeah. To me, the best Lex Luthor remains Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville. He's the best Lex Luthor. Nobody has topped him yet. Hippolyta. When Hippolyta appeared in Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman, she was magnificent. By providing a convincing regal air, Connie Nielsen brought more than an implicit gladiator connection to the part. Unfortunately, Nielsen's last scene in the movie is Hippolyta bidding farewell to her daughter, Wonder Woman, and acting like she'll never see the child again. And then she didn't. The scene obviously sets up the two being reunited at some point down the road, and the audience left to wonder what Hippolyta would make of Diana, who Diana became in the world of man, One might even ponder if Queen of the Amazons and her retinue might be convinced to return to that world, but we'll never know because other than flashback cameos and a few other flicks, we'll never see Hippolyta. We never really saw Hippolyta again. 12. King Shark. It might not be fair to say King Shark was totally wasted. I don't think so. The man-eating, walking, talking, anthropomorphic great white shark was, after all, pretty great in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Voiced by Sylvester Stallone as essentially a sadder, more violent version of OG Groot, thanks to Gunn's writing and direction, King Shark was comic relief, but the really funny kind that seemed destined to be expanded upon. Alas, Gunn himself has confirmed there are no plans for further Suicide Squad movies, so it would seem we only got a nibble at the King's greatness. Okay, so you're saying he was wasted because there's no more of him. Because I don't think he was wasted in the Suicide Squad. I think he was funny. 11, Dark Side. It turns out Zack Snyder was right. Between the two versions of Justice League, the better one features Jack Kirby's seething space dictator sitting in a chair, dictating his plans and scowling ominously. It ain't much, but it's better than only watching his middle management underling fight the League. Still, the film conceptually suffers from what made the similar Thanos also pretty ineffective before Infinity War. He's the bad guy waiting in the wings for a sequel, one that, in Darkseid's case, never came about. Granted, this is the same dynamic between Darth Vader and the Emperor in the original Star Wars trilogy, but even in those flicks, George Lucas never felt bothered to emphasize the menace of the Emperor until 2/3 through the trilogy. He knew he needed to make Vader such a great villain that audiences would be eager to see who ruled over even him. By contrast, Darkseid is a guy who sits in a chair for 4 hours and then sets up a sequel by standing up. 10, Martian Manhunter. This is a blink and you miss it. Speaking of Zack Snyder's Justice League, the choice to randomly shoehorn Martian Manhunter into a post-credit scene of a 4-hour movie never ceases to baffle. The creative decision even occurred years after the film was shot, with Snyder deciding he wanted to tease, like a comic book, something that would come next, even though his film would never have a sequel. It still seems like an only half-reasoned creative choice that makes for a head-scratching sequence when Ben Affleck is asked in reshoots to play it nonchalantly when a Martian shows up to his door. Recall, this is the same guy who tried to punch his pilot Superman only one movie ago for being an undocumented immigrant. The scene also undermines the only good scene Diane Lane had in the film when her Ma Kent comforted Lois Lane, and it turns out to be a gag, which was not the scene Lane or Amy Adams shot. Lols, am I right? Joker, 9, Joker. If one were to say anything about the amount of screen time Jared Leto's Joker had in the first Suicide Squad and Zack Snyder's Justice League, it would be that it was too much. If we never see a Joker with a damaged tact again, it'll be too soon. Yet this also speaks to what a wasted opportunity this take on Mr. J was. The DCEU Joker was supposed to be one that at last unpacked the grotesque, toxic, and mad love story of Joker and Harley Quinn, as well as a version of the character who interacted with a wider array of folks than Batman and his associates. Instead, we got James Franco from Spring Breakers with green hair. 8, Harley Quinn. If we are to speak about the blown potential of Joker, we must also recognize what never materialized with Harley. This is by no means a knock at Margot Robbie, who became an A-list movie star for a reason after 2016 Suicide Squad. And while her charisma was through the roof in that film, she really nailed the character's manic energy and mercurial nature in her two subsequent appearances. Even so, the DCEU never really embraced the character's full potential. In fact, it's fair to wonder if the studio was afraid of really traversing her most famous character arc in the comics, first by never truly exploring her relationship with Joker because Leto's interpretation was so disastrous, and next by refusing to unpack how she moved on from that relationship, likely in part because WB feared any hits of LGBTQ romance in Chinese and Middle Eastern markets. So the DCEU tap danced around Harley character's arc in those three films while letting the HBO Max animated series actually do it justice. Okay. 7, Perry White. It becomes fashionable on the internet to revise the history of the DCEU and suggest everything was literate and high-minded before Justice League was taken away from Snyder. Yet, if that were the case, how would one explain what happened to Lawrence Fishburne's Perry White in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice? Introduced as a slightly more grounded newsman and editor in Man of Steel, at least compared to previous attempts by Jackie Cooper and Frank Langella. The only thing of note Fishburne's Perry got to do was save Jenny Olsen from the rubble of a falling building in a sequence that echoed 9/11 to the point of tastelessness. Yet, come Batman vs. Superman, this slightly more serious characterization was dropped for a glorified cameo where Fishburne constantly shouts at Clark Kent to cover a sports game. Maybe he was lucky they didn't ask him back for Justice League. Ooh, Robin. Really? In all honesty, the Bat family dynamic remains the one element of Batman mythos that hasn't been seriously explored in live actions. His origins, relationships with Joker, Catwoman, and Superman, and even his Dark Knight Returns like retirement have all been at least attempted in the last 20 years. But Robin, the surrogate son who fixes something broken, and lonely Bruce Wayne never gets an appearance, no matter how many times WB reboots the character. Batman vs. Superman changed that by revealing Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne had a Robin and that he died violently off screen, which dude makes him even darker. Yawn. 5, Michael Keaton's Batman. Warner Brothers and director Andy Muschietti got Michael Keaton to return to the role of the Dark Knight more than 30 years after Batman Returns, and even nearly a decade after he satirized the superhero genre past in the Oscar-winning Birdman. We imagine that was a Herculean effort. Unfortunately, they forgot to give Keaton anything interesting to do. Admittedly, the blatant nostalgia-baiting casting reprisals of childhood favorites for middle-aged or near middle-aged ticket buyers in the 2010s and 2020s will likely be remembered with ridicule in the years to come. But even then, at least Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man got to metaphorically hug Alfred Molina, and Han Solo told Chewbacca, "We're home." Keaton, he just was asked to lamely repeat lines he said 34 years ago and then die on screen in the most underwhelming of ways. Now, it isn't Muschietti's fault that the studio leadership changed and forced him to rewrite the ending of The Flash, which originally would have seen Keaton's Batman come back from the dead. But like much else in this DCEU, ceaseless corporate meddling has resulted in a pitiful end to a great performance. Oh, the anger I'm feeling knowing that he was supposed to come back and the studio told him not to. Okay, Supergirl. Speaking of pitiful ends, Keaton's Batman isn't the only one who got short shrift during the Flash's Bananas finale. There was also Sasha Cal's wildly underused Supergirl, who also was repeatedly skewered, slayed, and all around slaughtered in multiple timelines, only to be probably never seen again. This one feels worse for Cal or Calais. However, because unlike Keaton, this was her first and only time with the character. Rather impressively, given the limited screen time, she made it count, creating the Kryptonian superhero when a handful of minutes revealed more optimism and hopefulness than 7 hours we got to spend with Henry Cavill's broody libertarian Cal. It's a shame this smart casting was wasted on that movie. Wow. Cyborg. Oh, wow. Okay. Yes. This one I definitely agree with. After you watch Zack Snyder's Justice League, you really come to fully understand actor Ray Fisher's frustration from the beginning about how everything went down. Love or hate Snyder's opus, it's an earnest, brooding work which, in its full assembly length, ultimately pivots around Fisher's Victor Stone. Fisher is genuinely soulful, able to convey real despair even while being forced to act through a mountain of CGI goop around half his face. In the theatrical cut, overseen by Josh Whedon, however, Cyborg is reduced to a peripheral character who says, "Booyah." There was something to Fisher's performance in Snyder's version, and we never got to learn what it fully was after the character was essentially written out of the DCEU. See, this after watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, I was like, okay, now I see why Ray Fisher was so pissed off, because they basically cut out his entire story. His entire story was completely cut out. This whole movie was about him. And they cut that away. And why would you do that? I'm not going to say. 2, Lois Lane. 6-time Academy Award nominated Amy Adams. Really? 6-time Academy nominated award? She's been nominated for the Academy Award for 6 times? I didn't know that. It was cast as Lois Lane. Let's rephrase that. The actress who could prove to be Philip Seymour Hoffman's better in The Master and who made speaking to CGI elephants in Arrival riveting was cast as the most tenacious and relentless figure in Superman comics. And by the end of her tenure, she was left playing with an engagement ring in her hand and waiting around for Superman to kiss her. Oh, and number 1, Batgirl. The list above includes heroes and villains, characters who never got a chance to shine, and others who were so miscast that it was a swing and a miss before the cameras ever rolled. However, they at least all did make it to the screen where audiences can make up their own opinions about performances or interpretations. But we'll never be able to say that about Leslie Grace's Batgirl, because despite being cast in the role, filming the part, and leading a film that as of last year was well into post-production, her studio's new leader, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, elected to put the film permanently in the vault in order to secure a tax break. It's a choice so cynical, so gruesomely utilitarian that it was likely to be used as the full stop punctuation mark when the history of superhero movies in the early 21st century is written. These things have so reduced cinema to disposable content in their owners' minds that the culmination of hundreds of hours of work, craft, and for at least some participants, art, can be shelved forever in order to balance the quarterly report. Grace's Batgirl and Brendan Fraser's Firefly, for that matter, were introduced to the DCEU and then hidden because of C-suite management. It may as well be this whole decade-long endeavor's epitaph. Huh. Oh, just in case you didn't know, that's Jimmy Olsen. So, okay. There was some I agreed with, some I didn't agree with, but definitely agreed with Batgirl. She didn't even get a chance. She didn't even get a chance to be good or bad because of biggest ass law. It just really sucks that somebody could just come in and do that. And just kill a movie like that. After all the hard work people put into it. But, so, the whatever. So, yeah. Definitely agree with Ray Fisher, with Cyborg, because yeah, when I watched that 4-hour movie, Jesus, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and most of it was about him. I was like, okay, I see why he was heated. I'd be heated too. I'd be so heated that they completely changed this movie and cut him out and made him a stereotype. And what did they replace it with? So that's it for today. Sorry, this headache is just driving me crazy. And that is very hard to think. So that's it for today. We'll be back Wednesday to talk about Ahsoka. And then, of course, there'll be another video on Friday. So, yeah. So we'll see you on Wednesday. And I've lost track of what number of episode we're on with Ahsoka. I've lost track. I don't know if we're on 3, 4, 5. Okay. The first week was 2. Then that was 3. I still can't remember. So I don't know if we're on 4 or 5. But I shall see tomorrow when it comes out. But we'll talk on Wednesday. Okay. But in the meanwhile, thanks for watching.